Welcome to the Remarkable Opportunities podcast, where we uncover the infinite possibilities of life. Join me, your host Alex Manhart, as I share my insights and perspectives on positivity, success, and self-development. Together we explore inspiring stories from experts across various industries. Be sure to tune in and discover the potential of life together. Dear Hasan, thank you so much for taking time to share your insights with us today. I'm truly honored and thrilled to have you on my show. You are an award-winning author of the book The Unfair Advantage, a viral sensation that has inspired millions worldwide. With a decade of experience in personal branding and tough leadership, you became the go-to coach for top influencers and businesses, and your work has been featured in prominent publications like Forbes, Fortune, and the BBC. Your book even earned the prestigious title of Business Book of the Year 2021, and for me it felt like having a trusted mentor on my side who articulates insights that cut through the noise and offers invaluable clarity. For the listeners who don't know the book, can you tell me how your journey started and briefly explain what your book is about?
Sure. Hi, Alex. Thanks for having me on. So the book is called The Unfair Advantage because it's about success. And I felt like most of the self-development industry and books really had, I think overall they're useful. I'm not like against them. I used to read them a lot. I think I still do. I still consume a lot of self-development content. But I felt like underneath their messaging was this assumption, whereas it's like they were assuming that everybody starts from the same starting line in life, as if everybody's circumstances and situations and strengths and weaknesses are the same. And it's just not true. We all have different circumstances. We all have different sort of starting lines. And I felt like self-development and business books never acknowledged or addressed that. And so when they just focus on like work hard and maybe apply some of these strategies, 1, 2, 3. And we felt like, no, we need to let people know that success is not just hard work. Hard work is necessary, but it's not enough. You need to work smart. You need to use your unfair advantages. So success is based on unfair advantages. And unfair advantages are like having some kind of head start or like a upper hand. So it's something like, being born into a rich family or having good connections. But it's also about like being naturally intelligent or having insights into an industry or into what it's like to experience something. Or maybe it's expertise that you've built up because you started when you were young, for example, or being in the right place at the right time. These are all examples of unfair advantages. So the good news is that unfair advantages is something we all have. We all have unfair advantages, not in an equal way, but we all have some. So we just need to discover them and use them to succeed.
So the unfair advantage explores the idea of harnessing one's strengths and unique qualities. Hence, identifying one's hidden unfair advantage can be a daunting task due to our attachments to past experience. Could you share 1 or 2 practical advice to help individuals uncover these advantages and harness them effectively?
Yes, and I love how you put that, Alex. That was a very articulate way of explaining it. Essentially, what you need to do is the first step is always self-awareness. The first step is just to be aware and to understand or know thyself. It's like an ancient Greek thing. It's been around as a piece of wisdom for thousands of years, is know thyself. One of the important things to get to know yourself. What are you naturally good at? What motivates you? What excites you? What are you passionate about? What do you keep thinking about? And what comes easy to you? It comes so like relatively easy to you, whereas others find it difficult. These are good places to start to figure out unfair advantages. The other is just to be aware of the different categories of unfair advantages. So the first step, as I said, is self-awareness. And, by having more experiences and reflecting more and getting feedback from people you've lived with or worked with or traveled with, That's the first step, is the self-awareness. And the second step is just to be aware of the different categories of unfair advantages. We break that down in the book with a framework we call the Miles framework, MILES. And that stands for money. M is for money. I is for intelligence and insight. L is for location and luck, which is another way of saying right place at the right time. E is education and expertise. And S is for status. Status is how are you perceived by others. And you can also have your inner status, how you perceive yourself. And there's a final thing that we include in status is your network of who do you know. And the reason that's included in status is because if I say, I was just having lunch the other day with, I don't know, Elon Musk or the king, that would raise my status. So who you know can actually really, really affect your status, your network. And so that kind of breaks down the Miles framework to know the different categories of unfair advantages. That's I would say, the second step. I mean, both of those are important, whichever order actually you put it in. You can get to know the categories, then get to know yourself. But it's very important to reflect on where you're naturally strong and to double down on those strengths. That's kind of the key message and concept from the book, is to focus on your strengths rather than trying to improve your weaknesses. From a career and business point of view, it's much more powerful to focus on your strengths.
Yeah, I saw a video 2 days ago, and you also said take your strengths and improve them and cut out your weaknesses and give them to other people and they can help you.
Yeah, exactly that.
Can you provide examples or anecdotes from your life or the life of others that illustrate the power of embracing the unfair advantage that individuals possess?
Yeah, sure. So I think I started my journey. I describe it in the book, in the story section of the book, about me. And I talk about how, for me, I got into business because of taking an online course about business, about starting an online business. And I consider myself an unnatural entrepreneur. I never was one of these kids where you can read about a lot of entrepreneurs and they were young, they were buying and selling stuff and they were trying to make money. But that wasn't me. I wasn't trying to do that in the school playground or something. But instead, I learned about it from an online course after I graduated university. And so I wasn't really aware of what my unfair advantages were. I considered myself like a more of a science and techie kind of guy. Just because I was good at science, I was going to go to medicine, and then I changed. But it turned out, over time, I've figured out that actually I'm much more of a creative than I thought, which is surprising because, for example, English wasn't a strong subject for me at school. I was better at science. I've realized that creative side is where I'm really drawn to. So that's hence why, and I kind of figured that out as I was writing the book, and then what I'm doing now since then. The other thing is, as I was starting my business and getting clients, I realized that a huge strength of mine is to build trust quite quickly and quite well with clients, and to be able to explain concepts which seem complicated to them in simple words. So in other words, communication and building trust is a strength. Even though I'm an introvert, I'm not a people person, extroverted and loving to meet people. Not really. I'm kind of in between. But an unfair advantage of mine is building up that trust, which is how I got clients, how I was able to get referrals, how I was able to grow the business. So here's the funny thing, Alex. I had this web design agency and then other services later, but without even having a website. And so there's an irony in being a web design company without having a website, which is very funny to me. But it didn't matter. What mattered is I was able to do it for my clients really well. I was able to build beautiful and high converting websites for them. And so they were happy and they paid me well.
How did you gain their trust?
So often the advice I give to others when you want to, let's say you want to do kind of a service business and you want to get your first clients, is you start with people that you know. And it's not people that you know. It's not like your friends are going to be your clients. Usually it's going to be a friend of a friend. So it's like a warm contact, an introduction. So it's not somebody that you know necessarily. And this was definitely the case for me. It wasn't clients of people who are my friends or people who I knew, but it was a friend of a friend who I got introduced to became a client. And so it started like that. That was how the introduction came. And then how I built trust with them is because I had a clear understanding of marketing, branding, like what will work for web design for a business, what will give them a return on investment. It was very business kind of and marketing focused. And then they give me a try, and then I deliver what I said I would deliver. And then that is what builds trust. So I think it was that ability to kind of connect with them and to show that, I'm serious and I care about getting them the results that helped me to get there. So yeah, that's why I became a coach, because again, I realized, this is where I'm stronger. Not really. My biggest strength isn't like to have, hundreds of employees. Actually, I don't like that. I don't like managing people. I prefer to kind of consult and coach people, which is now what I do pretty much full time. So that's kind of my own personal anecdote of how I used unfair advantages. There's lots of other different ways, different angles to look at, like being based in London, an unfair advantage of living in London with my parents when I graduated university. That's, a very high cost of living city. And I was able to get clients that could afford things because I live in London, and my parents moved from Iraq, where I was born, Baghdad, to London. That was a big unfair advantage. So different things like that is what helped me massively.
Thank you for your insight. So, as an expert in personal branding, what are some key elements or principles that individuals should consider when building their personal brand, especially in the digital age?
Great question. What my advice for personal brand building, and for me, I like to focus specifically on building a brand as being some kind of expert or educator or helping others to transform their lives. What I focus on for personal brand is not necessarily lifestyle brand of just like being like what people would consider like a vlogger or Instagram influencer or something. What I like to focus in particular on is building your brand as an expert or somebody who helps others to level up their lives by educating them in some way. So sharing knowledge. So just to give that kind of caveat of this is what I like to focus on, is how to be a thought leader, how to be, let's say, an educational influencer or YouTuber or whatever. And for that, my piece of advice that I love to give people is people often think about what niche should I do? What's my niche? What niche should I choose? And they think of niche as a subject. So they think of like, oh, I'm going to talk about nutrition, or I'm going to talk about tech, or I'm going to talk about, I don't know, some kind of sport. But and that's fine. You can think of it that way. But what I recommend instead is more powerful, is to think of yourself, the niche, as what problem are you solving? And who are you solving that problem for? Or another way of saying this is, what transformation are you creating? So for example, if you're a nutrition coach, let's say, and you're helping people to get into shape, maybe you're helping people who are overweight to get into shape, then you can think, okay, the transformation is from overweight to, fit and in shape. And that's the before and after. So I love to think, and I always coach people and influencers and aspiring like creators, YouTubers, whatever they might be, TikTokers, to think of themselves as, who are they targeting? What problem are they solving? What transformation are they making? So another example is from being in $10,000 or euros of credit card debt to being debt free. Another example is from not having a YouTube channel to being a successful YouTuber. Another transformation is from, wanting to write a book to getting a book deal, writing a book and becoming a bestseller. So these are different transformations that I can help with. Starting a tech startup company, from aspiring to start one to, raising, millions of dollars and, having 100 employees and whatever the transformation is. Like, I'm now a success in business. So those are that's the advice I would give about building a personal brand, is try and think of it as, what transformation are you helping people to make and what problems are you solving for them?
Could you also tell me some common misconceptions or challenges you have encountered when it comes to personal branding and thought leadership?
Misconceptions. I think people think that personal branding is just about take nice photos, or you have, for example, you have to do a dance to go on TikTok or something like this. And it's just not true, because they see the lifestyle influencers and they see them, they're like Instagram models, or they're like, you know, just like huge names who have become names for being like good looking or being cool or being musicians or something like that. And they think it's that. But it's not that. It's not just about looking good on camera. It's about finding a specific problem to solve, finding your audience. There's a really useful article. It's an old article by a guy called Kevin Kelly. I think it was written in 2007. And it was called 1000 True Fans. And basically, in this article, Kevin Kelly, he's like the founder of Wired magazine, which is a technology magazine. And he said that nowadays with the internet, this is way back in 2007, he said with the internet, you can be really niche, like really specific about who you're targeting, or an obscure interest or hobby or something problem. And you can find your 1000 true fans. And if you find your 1000 true fans, like people who are genuine fans, who will like talk about you to their friends, who will buy the stuff that you make, then you can make a living online. And this is the new era of the internet. And I really believe in that kind of thing. You just need to find your, like, don't try and make millions of people like you. Instead, try to just make 1,000 people absolutely love you. And not you just because of your personality necessarily, but you because you can help them solve problems, for example, you know, or you're very specific, or you're talking to a very specific group of people, you know, that you can maybe relate to. And that is the big thing that I would say people don't think of when they're trying to build their personal brands.
That's really interesting, because I have never heard about that before. Like finding 1,000 true fans, and then you can make a living out of that.
Absolutely. It's too many people try to please everyone. You know, they try to just be likable. But the problem is, if you just be like meh, kind of likable to a million of people, it's kind of you're easily forgettable. You're not really building a deep relationship. Whereas if you can be really lovable to just 1,000 people, and again, like I said, it's not like you have to be super like funny or super talented or have a crazy personality. You can simply choose an area where people are struggling, a particular group of people are struggling, and really address and help those people. Even if you're not like an expert yourself, but let's say you can relate to what they did and you're doing the research yourself, or you're interviewing people in the space yourself, you can get 1,000 true fans because you are speaking directly to them. And I think that's the power, is to talk specifically, like kind of niche down, as they call it, like narrow your niche. It's very important to narrow your niche at the beginning of who you're targeting. You can always broaden your niche out later as you grow. You know, you don't need to always just stay in a tiny, narrow niche. But to get started, to get going, it's really, really useful to narrow your niche.
You also say that authenticity is very important to make a personal brand, or generally when you're speaking about your why.
Absolutely. Yeah. Authenticity is huge. People can sense when you really care about something. People can sense when you have a passion for something. And also, it helps you. It's not just for people to sense it. It helps you to stick with it, because it's a hard journey to build a personal brand. It involves creating a lot of content, and it takes time to get better and to see if you're getting traction and to kind of build an audience. And you have to kind of really authentically love it so you can stick with it and not give up. And also because people can then sense it too.
That's true. I learned that one of the most important thing is that you also should take the time to celebrate yourself and gain this moment, or take this moment and write it down in your success journal, and also think about your emotions, and that you can take this moment and gain through this moment more motivation in the future.
Yes, I think it's healthy to do so. But there's a lot of successful people who don't really celebrate their wins. But that then makes them less happy. So it's not, I don't think it's necessary to succeed, but I think it's better to do so. And it can help you be sustainably more, not burn out, for example, or to keep going. There's a lot of examples of people who don't stop and celebrate their wins, who actually it kind of drives them in kind of a bad way, but it gets them the result. So it depends what their priorities are. So some people, it's just about the impact they have on the world, and they don't really prioritize their own personal happiness. And I guess that's not great. Ideally, you want to prioritize both. So yeah, that's my caveat to what you're saying, because I definitely think it's important to celebrate your wins, and I try to celebrate mine.
Yes, I think that's important, very important. So, speaking about success, can you share any memorable success stories or transformations from your coaching and strategy work with online influencers and businesses?
Yeah, so a big example, and I like to use him as an example a lot because he's very open and transparent with his audience about everything, which makes me, as his coach, it's easy for me to talk about his wins and what he's gone through. So I could start with Ali Abdal. Ali Abdal is a big YouTuber. He's got I think almost 5 million subscribers right now. He's huge now. He's become a really good friend of mine too. But he started off as a coaching client. He was one of my first coaching clients back in 2020, actually. When I first started with him, he basically is, he teaches, he started off by teaching how to get into, he's a doctor, he's a medical student at Cambridge. Like when he started his YouTube channel, he was a medical student at Cambridge University. And he was doing content about how to get into medical school. So if you now notice, it's very niche to begin with, very specific. It's like how to get into medical school in the UK, with the UK kind of exams and things like that. And then he started talking about how to study effectively. So study skills for students, etc. So you see, that's a broader niche. Much more people are students than there are who are trying to get into medical school. It's just a bigger market overall. And then he started to talk about how to take notes on an iPad and how to manage. And slowly it just became how to manage your time and be productive. So it became productivity content. And he would even review tech and things like that. So again, that's an even broader niche. And he was making money from his Skillshare class. He had some Skillshare classes. One was how to edit videos and many others. And he was making good money at those times. Maybe this is around 2019, 2020. He started it in roughly 2017, his YouTube channel. And I started working with him. And one of the first things I wanted to do was to encourage him to launch a premium, a high-priced online course. I'm a big fan of online courses. My whole journey began with an online course. And it was also very expensive. So he had a lot of success barriers and limited beliefs about that. He was scared to sell something expensive. And by expensive is $2,000 for an online course, rather than what he had in mind is $400. And I was like, no, Ali, you need to go higher. You need to go more premium. And he was scared. And this is very common. I was scared when I started my sort of entrepreneurship journey, and learning to sell is a scary thing because you're making yourself vulnerable. You feel like you can get rejected. You feel like, what do they think of me? Maybe they think I just want money. You have all these limiting beliefs about it. And no one likes to sell unless you have a background in sales, maybe. So I helped him get over that. And helped him to launch his online course. It was called the Part-Time YouTuber Academy, which the acronym is PTYA. And he has literally made millions of dollars, millions of pounds from this online course since he launched it. And it's just makes me so happy to be able to help somebody to do that. So yeah, I guess that's a really good case study to begin with of a transformation, or somebody who's it started. He was already making a lot of money from his YouTube channel and Skillshare and things like that, but this online course became more than 50% of his income for the following years. And he was able to hire 20 employees, and it just became huge. So yeah, it was a huge success story. And then I helped him to get a book deal. And I've done that with other clients of mine, ones which don't have a big audience on YouTube either. So yeah, there's quite a few transformations I could talk about.
That's beautiful to hear, and that he had no more limiting beliefs anymore. So, how would you define success for yourself?
Oh, good question. So for me, success is about spending my time in the way I'd like to spend it. So essentially, one of the exercises I like to think about, one of the kind of thought experiments, is what would I do if I won the lottery? I don't play the lottery. I don't believe in playing the lottery, but just as an idea, if you had millions of, euros, pounds, whatever, what would you do if finance was not a constraint or a concern any longer? How would you spend your days? And for me, the online course I took, I haven't mentioned, is actually I was motivated by making passive income, not by making a lot of money. And it actually did reach that point. Took the course in 2012. I finally started my business in 2014 because I had so much fear to begin. And then by towards the end of 2015, like mid 2015, so about 18 months, almost 2 years later, the business was running itself. My team was taking care of my clients, and I didn't have to actively do much at all to keep the business running. And that time I was spending time traveling around Southeast Asia, and just thinking about what I want to do next. And so my whole dream was to free up my time. But then I realized it's really boring. What do? You have to do something. So that's when I started to do more investing. And then that's when I started to write the book and then do some coaching. And now I'm kind of working on my own YouTube channel. So I don't think I would change what I'm doing day to day if I had loads and loads of money. And I think that's one of the big ways that I define success for myself.
So, you would say that everything you're doing right now makes you happy?
Yeah. It doesn't mean like every moment. Like, I don't believe like work can like writing can still be really difficult and painful. So I don't believe that work will be enjoyable in every moment. No way. Like even your dream job is not enjoyable every moment. And that's just life, because if it was enjoyable, then it would kind of be boring and it would stop being enjoyable. I think that's just the human brain. So we need challenge, we need stress, we need pressure, we need a bit of strain. And I think that's just the up and down of life. So yeah, I just wanted to point out that not every moment is happy. I don't live in some kind of paradise, but I like how I'm spending my days. I enjoy, for example, spending hours writing and researching. I really enjoy that. I enjoy working with clients. I enjoy helping them launch online courses or helping them plan a book or helping them create a marketing strategy. That for me is fun. So yeah, I love it.
And what advice would you give someone who is struggling to find their passion or purpose in life?
Oh, that's a great question. I think for me, I didn't find it until I was like 30 years old. So I didn't even realize what my unfair advantages were until I was like, I don't know, 27, 28, So it took me a long time. And I think the best piece of advice I can give on that is to try more things. Do more work experiences, do more internships, volunteer some stuff, like try more things. Don't be afraid of like doing something and then like deciding it's not for you and leaving. Don't be worried about like having gaps in your CV or resume. I don't think that's a big concern nowadays. I think it's more important to quickly find what you enjoy and what you're good at. And I think the only way to do that is by trying lots of different things. It doesn't just mean jobs. It means you know, like doing what you're doing. Like try doing a podcast, try making YouTube, try writing articles, try writing, I don't know, a book, try and build a Twitter following, or now it's called X. Just try different things. Try and buy stuff and sell it online. Just try more things. Try jobs as well. Try work experience as well, internships as well. That's the advice I would give, is you need to try more and reflect more on what you're good at and what you enjoy. And what do people come to you for help with? I think that's a good path to find your unfair advantages and find your passion. I think passion is kind of one of those things where it's almost like if you're passionate about something, you will be talented in that thing. Not exactly, that's not exactly true, but I think with time and because you care to persist with it because you enjoy it, you will get good at it. That's kind of what I believe.
So, trying lots of different things is really important, I would say, in the personal life as well as in the professional life. What would you say are the most significant lessons you've learned from your own experiences?
I guess we should narrow it down because that's so broad, mind has trouble finding an answer specifically to that. But let's think, what lessons from experience? I think I've experienced the fact that I think I already touched on this point, but this is an interesting point. This idea of being a creative. I like I said, I never thought that I was that, but I clearly am that. And creative doesn't mean artistic because I was never good at art. It doesn't mean poetic. I was never good at poetry or that interested in it. But it can be things which seem like factual, but you can be creative in how you give that information. So one of the insights I had about myself is that I like teaching. I like explaining things. And I think there's a creativity in how do you tell a story and explain something and what examples do you give. And I think that that's important to me. That's number one. Number two, I'm not very money motivated. I'm much more motivated by how I spend my time and the kind of impact and the kind of reaction people have to my work and like the positive impact I have on them. So thankfully, this book has done so well. I was very perfectionist about the book in a good way because perfectionism can be bad, and I do have the bad side too as well. But I mean it in a good sense, and I think that paid off. I'm also the type of person who's not very good at quantity. I'm better at quality. So some people can like do lots of projects at the same time. Most people can't, but some people can. Some people are just like have multiple projects or multiple businesses. But most people like they're not very good when they have multiple things. It's better if they focus. I'm definitely in that category. I like to focus on pretty much one business at a time. So yeah, I'm very I like to do deep work. I like to really craft something and take the effort. I've been working on a YouTube video. It's like a documentary style video, essay style video. It's like a case study from the book. I've been working on it for like 2 or 3 months now. Like 3 months now of researching and scripting. It's going to be like a 45-minute, 1 hour video. That's a long time. Only because I love it do I do that, you know? Only because I care so much. So this is the kind of what I've realized about myself. I'm much more of a quality rather than quantity type of person.
Would you say in general that people should find their creative side much more or more often?
Yes, I think more of us are creative than we think. And I think we need to, a lot of people come to me saying, I just need a creative outlet. I don't hate my job. It's fine. I can continue my work and my career. I'm successful. But I just need to do something creative as well. And so they get in touch with me because they want to build their personal brand or they want to become YouTubers or they want to write a book. And I think that's like an itch that a lot of us have. And I think most people have it to some extent. And I think you should try it because it's very fulfilling. It's tough. It's like one of those things that's hard, but worth it.
How does it feel to have a wide-reaching impact on people's life?
Oh, really nice. It's like, well, first of all, you don't really feel it until you get I get emails very often from all over the world of people saying how much my book has improved them, touched their lives, etc. By the way, me and my co-author, I wrote it with a co-author, Ash Ali. It's not just me. And how much we've influenced them and improved their life with that. And that just feels incredible. And you know, to get those messages or to get tagged on an Instagram post of people saying, I've got the book and I love it, etc. But it's better when you meet people face to face because you don't really feel it as much. I mean, it feels good to receive the emails and messages and stuff, but then like meeting people face to face or hearing about how they actually made like a lot of money or they built their brand or they have a lot of subscribers or followers now, that feels really nice to see like tangible what difference it makes. So that's really nice. And also that's why I like speaking on stage, like in person, because you actually see the audience and speak to them afterwards. So that's also something that has a really nice impact.
So you had the opportunity to speak at top business schools and deliver keynote speeches at prominent companies. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, that was very fulfilling and still is. Like I really enjoy doing that.
And what are some common themes or advice you often share with your audience during the speaking events?
It depends. So it's usually about the book concept of the unfair advantage because it's a unique concept that people haven't thought of how to find their own unfair advantages, how to think about that, how to double down on it. I also do talks about startup businesses, how to start a business, entrepreneurship. Also do talks on marketing. So yeah, it depends on it, or it can be more self-development kind of audience where I can help them with like personally how do they figure out their goals, stay motivated, etc., that kind of thing, and get to know themselves. And again, links back to how they can find their own personal unfair advantages. Those are the kind of topics that I talk about often on stage.
And what fascinates you the most while doing it?
I really like the questions I get. I really like what people tell me afterwards and the impact, like their reactions. I really like to make it as compelling and engaging as possible, to try and make it a storytelling, try and make really good slides, and just seeing that reaction. I think that's probably the most fascinating thing about doing it. It's also interesting sensing in myself that kind of positive adrenaline of speaking on stage. It's very nice. I like public speaking. I used to be terrified of public speaking. That's probably why I feel so good doing it nowadays.
So you would say everyone can overcome their fear?
Absolutely. I think it's the most common fear is actually fear of public speaking. And yeah, you just need a lot of repetition to practice small and build up kind of a resistance to that fear and just to desensitize yourself to it because it's really fulfilling and nice.
And how does your daily life looks like, private and work-wise spoken, from the first time you get up from your bed to the last few minutes when you're going to bed?
I like to spend the mornings on writing and creative tasks and afternoons with clients. That's generally how I spread out my day. I like a lot of variety. So I'll work from different places. Sometimes from my home office, sometimes from I have an office in central London, sometimes from like a library I like to go and work from, sometimes a coffee shop. In the last couple of weeks, not as much, but in general, I go to the gym in the mornings. I need to get back into that habit, but just for 2 weeks now, I've been really focused on writing. Yeah, that's kind of how I break up my day. Nowadays, I've been doing a lot of intermittent fasting, which is actually I've found to be very useful. It's a bit challenging at first, but very useful in terms of my focus levels, not having to think of where should I get lunch, going out for lunch, feeling quite full afterwards, etc. It really helps me to just skip breakfast and skip lunch and then just have dinner, which has been quite useful. I've been doing that on most weekdays these days, not every single day. Yeah, that's and then like always evening time with my family, with my wife, have a baby at the moment. So yeah, that's kind of my day. That's how my day looks.
Oh, wow. A friend of mine did the same diet and he was very, very into it as well. And congratulations to your baby.
Thank you. Yeah. No, it's becoming a father has been one of the most joyful and incredible things. And I feel like it's too underrated. I feel like everyone talks about how difficult having kids is. And yeah, it's challenging, but it's so joyful. Why are people not talking about how joyful it is? So I think that's important to encourage others because they think, oh no, like they worry too much about the practical sides of it. But the reality is often it will just motivate you to work harder, to make more money, like the costs, let's say, or how difficult it is, or the lack of sleep. I mean, you'll adapt. We're all evolved to have kids, There's a reason we're all here. So clearly, like, there is a joy to it. Otherwise, people wouldn't have done it, and we wouldn't be here right now. So yeah, it's important to point out.
That's true. And I think seeing a little boy or a little girl smiling is one of the most beautiful things.
Exactly.
So how do you handle your busy life and free time? I mean, you have a baby right now, you're working, you have clients.
I generally have always been quite good at having a balance. In fact, I don't even think about trying to balance my life more because I try to actually focus on work more because I'm naturally quite good generally. I mean, there are some times where it's like deadlines or something where I do work a bit too much, but in general, I'm not that type. So therefore, I try to actually tell myself to work more and spend more hours and to be more productive with my time. rather than less, because I generally have spent the evenings relaxing and with my wife or family or parents or friends. So yeah, that's not a problem for me.
Was it all the time like that?
Generally, that's how I've always been in general. But of course, like when deadlines are around or when work, business gets tough, then yeah, like I'll be working at nights and stuff and do crazy long hours and do like for the book deadline, I had all nighters. I've done like late nights for client work, things that are going wrong in my business. That happens, of course. But I think that's not my default. My default is to be relatively balanced.
And looking ahead, what are your future goals and projects?
Yeah, this YouTube channel, I am looking to help more. So there's two areas that I've been enjoying particularly. Number one is online learning. So online coaching and courses, helping creators launch courses, monetize their audiences, even if they're small, teaching other people how to be coaches, people who are experts in something, how can they coach others? That's an area that I'm going to be doing more of. Another area doing more of, which I really enjoy, is helping people to plan and launch and get publishing deals and get a book proposal and get a literary agent for their first book. I love that. So I'm going to do that more. So other than that, so that's like the client services side, like consulting and coaching. The other side is YouTube. I'm going to do much more YouTube. I'm going to be a creator myself and really focus on creating really in-depth kind of documentary style videos. That's the plan. So rather than a second book, I'm working on YouTube, like documentary style videos. So those are the two areas that I'll be focused on.
And why was the book your first intention to do?
Well, it wasn't just me. It was my co-author, Ash Ali, who's actual. It was his idea to do this book. So the concept originally comes from him of the unfair advantage. But then most of the writing came from me. Most of the developing the concept came from me. So it was like definitely a team effort. But it kind of, I was always into reading. I always liked books. I read fewer books physically right now. I listen to more audio books and I watch a lot of YouTube. But I still have I'm looking at the stack of books and I'm building shelves and stuff right now to house all my books. So yeah, I've always been into books. My friend Ash was working on a book and I kind of got involved in that. And I think even in my first business idea, my plan was to work with authors. So I think I was always drawn to it. And we thought, yeah, we should write a book. We never kind of considered another way or to make it into, I don't know, videos or something or podcasts. It was just like the way of teaching a big concept, a big idea is a book.
Interesting. And I think podcasts and videos as well are or weren't that common in the last few years.
Yeah, maybe it's not even about common. I think there was plenty of videos. I think it's more like writing a book gives you credibility. Like it's a more respectable medium. And the reason it's a more respectable medium is it has a higher barrier to entry. And the barrier to entry to be a published author, not self-published, is to get a publishing deal, which is not easy at all. That's a difficult thing to do, or something which I've got a lot of experience in. And that gives you an incredible amount of credibility, authority. It opens up so many doors and so many opportunities. And that's why writing a book is so powerful. And then once you're an author, you can do YouTube. Or if you're a YouTuber, you probably want to write a book to build that credibility and authority because it's just much more respected. Because it's like having a self-published book. It's not as special because there's no editors, there's no publisher, no one chose you. The same with YouTube. Anybody could upload anything to YouTube, Anybody could make a podcast. But to actually prove that you have something credible there, you have to have like an award-winning podcast or a huge podcast that's on one of the, the rankings of Apple top podcasts or something, or on YouTube, you have to have like millions of subscribers. Otherwise, and even if you have millions of subscribers, still, if you talk to the average person in the street, it's not like they necessarily respect like a YouTuber based on authority, I think they'll think of it as cool. But an author has got a higher level of like credibility. So yeah.
That's true. And a friend of mine asked me if I could ask you, because he wrote a book too, how you managed to get this book deal.
Yeah, that's a whole huge story. But I think in summary, to get a book deal, you have to have a unique idea or a unique spin on an idea. It doesn't need to be like completely out of the blue original. You have to have a unique spin on the idea. You have to have some authority and credibility as an author. And then it's like a business. It's like you have to show how you're going to get a lot of sales, how you're going to work to get a lot of sales and do marketing and promotion. So that's in a nutshell. And then you need to get introduced to literary agents who can then hopefully help you get a publishing deal. So that's kind of the process in a nutshell. But yeah, every step can be optimized and worked on and helped with.
So would you say marketing is one of the most important things to do?
Yeah, it's one of the most important things. I think there's two sides to every kind of business, let's say. It's product and marketing. And media, like videos, podcasts, books, there is a lot of crossover of product and marketing, because the marketing will also be content and the product will also be content. So it's an interesting space, because whereas if you make like pens, for example, then your product and marketing is completely separate. If you make software, product and marketing is completely separate. Cars, anything like that. But media, like content, product and marketing are both content. That's the interesting thing about like media and being a content creator, including like a book is also a form of content. So in summary, you either, to be a very overly simplistic way of defining this, is to be successful in life. Two of the easiest paths are, number one, sales and marketing, or number two, get really good at building product in some way, whether that's being a software engineer or whether it's being like a physical, like kind of mechanical engineer, or a product designer or something like that. Those are the two areas where you can make a lot of money, is product and marketing and sales. Like marketing and sales is together, which is the distribution of the product and the awareness and distribution of the product, and then the product itself. If the product itself is no good, then all the sales and marketing in the world will not save it. If the product itself is good, sometimes it can succeed without sales and marketing, but very, 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 very rarely. You need both. Probably product is a bit more important than marketing, but as a career, sales and marketing is probably more likely to cause huge financial success. So those are the two. Both areas are very important.
And if the product is totally fine, what strategies can individuals use to gain media coverage and build a personal brand or brand for the product?
So the reason that product is so important is because the most powerful form of marketing is word of mouth. And word of mouth happens when people recommend something to somebody else. So just to give you an example of the book, I remember we were like focused on like, okay, how are we going to market this? And the publishers were like, the first step is to just make it as good of a book as you can. Because all the sales and marketing in the world, all that will give you is an initial boost in sales at the beginning of the book launch. But if the book itself isn't great, you're not going to get word of mouth referrals and recommendations. And if you don't have that word of mouth referrals, recommendations, and like ratings and reviews on Amazon and Goodreads, then it doesn't matter. You won't continue to get sales. Whereas if you have a good product, you will continue to get sales. However, if you launch a good product and no one reads it, like a good book, let's say, and no one reads it, or let's say a good movie and no one watches it, it doesn't matter because no one's tried it. So no one can give word of mouth. So you need that initial bit of sales and marketing to get people to watch it in the first place or read it in the first place. And this applies to any product or service. So you definitely need both. If you have a good product, how do you do sales and marketing? In marketing, one of the most fundamental principles is you have to define who the target audience is. Who's the target market? You have to define, who are they? What do they like? And if there's different personas or different avatars of different people, then you have to define who they are. And then you have to think, where do they hang out? And then you have to think, how do you get their attention? These are all the different things that you need to do.
So you would say niching down your target audience is one of the most important things to do. Are there other things which are important too, like except all the basic knowledge?
No, that's it. The fundamentals is key. And it's not necessarily niching down per se. I mean, it doesn't need to be a tiny niche. You can still have quite a big niche, but you just need to be aware of who you're targeting.
And when I know my target audience, how can I start pursuing them?
You have to think, where do they hang out? So, for example, physically, or more likely online. What social media platforms are they using? Who else are they following? How do you get in front of them? How do you get their attention? That's the key.
And then if you are building your brand, you should do content, which is the content they would see or like looking forward to see.
Exactly. Because if you make content targeted to them, then they'll feel good that it's aimed at them. They'll feel like, oh, this is speaking to me.
And what would you say is one of the most problems while defining your content?
Defining your content, or do you mean
Creating
content? Oh, there's so many areas I can go down, Alex. When creating your content, the biggest problems, I think you have to really focus on what people care about. So once you've defined who your target audience is, okay, now you have to figure out, what do they care about? And often what they care about is whatever's top of their mind. And the top of their mind things are often going to be areas where they're feeling pain or urgency or irrational passion. That's what they will get their attention. So the fastest way of getting viewers and getting an audience is to talk about things which are urgent and painful for them, or which they have an irrational passion about. By the way, Alex, sorry, I have to jump off very soon. I have a meeting in 10 minutes and I need to kind of jump ahead.
Okay.
Well, then apologies.
I think that's perfect, because my last question would be, what stands on your bucket list on things you want to do in your life?
Oh, what do I want to do in my life on my bucket list? I haven't thought about that for a while. Well, there are countries that I want to travel to and explore, which I still haven't. Japan is one of those. I still haven't been to Japan. I'd love to go there. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind. I don't know. I don't think of things as bucket lists. Oh, that's a really good question. I think of things more as like, I want, like a bucket list thing is, I want to have a successful YouTube channel with, documentary style videos. That's like the thing I'm working on now. So that's like the top of my mind. So when you ask me that, that's what comes to my mind. So another trip I want to do is to do a safari in like East Africa one day. So like Kenya or Tanzania, to go on safari. Yeah, I don't know. Those are the things that come to my mind, really, Alex.
Well, then I wish you all the best with your YouTube channel, and that you can do your trips as soon as possible.
Thanks. I'm in no rush to do them, but I'm looking forward. Like, I'd love to do those. Like, I'm looking forward to them. But yeah, I'm kind of like, yeah, it's interesting, Alex, because I guess my goals have become very like based on what I'm wanting to achieve creatively, So I think that is more of what I want to do, and I'm open to where life takes me from there, as opposed to the specific things that I want to do, not particularly. Yeah.
I would think that's very beautiful.
Thank you.
So thank you again for joining me today.
Thanks,
Do you like to say something in the end?
Yeah, anybody could find help. If you need help finding your unfair advantage, we have a free quiz. So if you go to the unfairacademy.com, and there's a button there which takes you to a quiz to answer some questions to help you get insights on what your unfair advantage might be. And secondly, if you have the unfair advantage of money to invest, then I sometimes have some slots open for coaching. So most of the time I don't. I actually only work with a few clients, but every now and again somebody graduates from my coaching program and I'm open to new ones. So feel free to DM me on social media or on email me or whatever. If you are serious and want to invest, it's can be a big investment, but if you want to invest in coaching, that's also something that I offer at this stage.
Well, then thank you again. Then all the best, your Alex. This was a new episode of the Remarkable Opportunities podcast. I hope you got a lot out of it and can use some tips and tricks in your everyday life. Support me by subscribing, liking, and or leaving a comment. Your feedback is very welcome and helps me to spread the message of positivity, success, personal development, and possibilities of life even further. I look forward to having you join me for the next episode. Until then, never stop pursuing your dreams. All the best, your Alex.